People, Deluded, thank you very much for tuning back in. Now, as you can see, I've got a scrunched up piece of paper. I printed it off at work. Obviously, don't put paper in your pocket. It's a schoolboy error from myself. But I'm sure you've all seen or come across a tweet or tweets in relation to Grame Souness' comments, specifically about former Juventus striker, now Everton, Moise Kean. And for me, it's seeing the comments and just hearing it is ridiculous, man. It's like, one, he may very well have an attitude problem, which I don't think is the case, but how do you know? Like, it's just dangerous, inaccurate comments. And for me, people in these positions, they need to be held accountable. If that's his genuine opinion, then fair enough, but they need to be accountable for what they're saying sometimes. We know football can be a sheep mentality. When you're saying these things like he's got an attitude problem, people are looking at Sky Sports, are looking at you, Souness, as someone who is knowledgeable, someone who's played the game, someone who's managed teams. They're looking at you as an individual, a beacon of knowledge, essentially. So they're taking your words somewhat for gospel. And this is what I always tell you lot in my YouTube channel. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm trying to tell you my videos to think. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I just want you to come to a conclusion for yourself and hear all sides. We all know, like I said, beacon of knowledge. People are looking at you and thinking, well, you must have done your research. He must have an attitude problem. And that's going to become the general consensus and lead to the mentality and all of this stuff and all of this nonsense. I'm sure he's like every other 19-year-old. He makes mistakes and things like that. If he does make mistakes, we need to remember, this is just a general comment. When they say this attitude thing and a player, there's a difference between making a mistake and having a bad attitude. Away from Moise Kean now, there are some players that have been rough around edges, to put it nicely, people, and they've sorted themselves out. But they might make a mistake, like they might, they might go clubbing for two. Apologies for that, people. Like I said, people are looking at Grame Souness as a beacon, people, a beacon of knowledge. They're taking what you say more or less for gospel, and whether that's right or wrong, who knows, people. I mean, you could draw comparisons between Brexit, to be honest with you. Whether you voted to remain or leave is not for that, but there was a lot of misinformation fed to people. And to be honest, first and foremost, the politician's job is to obviously inform the public for the greater good and to make the right decisions. But we all know many politicians are sneaky and they all have ulterior motives. If they fed you information and you've believed it, yes, it's wrong. But on the other hand, you eat it, to be fair with you, because you should do your own research. And it kind of goes for life in regards to this Grame Souness thing. Nonetheless, people are paying their money to watch Sky Sports, and they're seeing Grame Souness say these comments like, how do you know Moise Kean has an attitude problem? Sorry, people. How do you actually know that? Whether he has or hasn't is another case, but how do you know that? Yes, he's not initially started since he's joined Everton, but he's just joined the club. He's still a young player. It's not like he's an established individual. It's still going to be a teething period. Have you ever considered the fact that he's been at Juventus and he's been a talented player and he got opportunities last season, but the main factor for him leaving is regular football, people. They know he's a talented player. Did he not go on loan somewhere in the Italian league? It could have been Verona or something. In fact, I can go and check that, but he went on loan. He went on loan a couple of years ago. So you know he's an individual with ability. Like many young players, both in England and elsewhere, first team football is hard to come by, much less at a football club like Juventus. He scored some goals last season and obviously was subjected to racist taunts, but they're there with Ronaldo and all of these sort of players trying to win Champions League. Is Moise Kean full his ability gonna play there? Who knows? And I'm pretty sure, again, I'm not a transfer man, so I don't know, but I'm sure there's a buyback clause. Was that not said on when he moved? Again, I could be wrong about that, but you could bet regardless that Juventus have their eyes on him, and much other teams in Europe. I've watched him play in youth tournaments and youth Euros and things, and he's a bloody good player, but his ability is irrelevant. How do you know he's got an attitude problem? Like, it's just setting people up for failure. And I'm not saying he's a particular individual, but we all know the certain sort of abuse that certain players have been getting on social media, and we all know what racism has been essentially rearing its ugly head back into the terraces. We all know the sort of mobs mentality with things. This kind of fuels it in. So if Kean turns around and has a bad game, people are going to turn, these idiots that are taking your opinion for gospel, they're going to turn around and what they're going to say, people? He's not putting work in because he's got an attitude problem. He just cares about money, this, that and the third. You're setting people up for failure, essentially. How you've drawn comparisons with him and ADOBE makes no sense, people, but I owe it to you lot to read this thing properly and then give my opinions. But here we go. This is what the relevant bits I took. It said, if they've not got a buyback clause, then they're happy to see him out the door at 19. If it doesn't make any common sense. It seems as if Juventus are saying, we don't care how good he's going to be, go on, take him. It's a bit like Emmanuel Adebayor at 25. just about to enter his best years, and Wenger sold him to Man City. Right away, you're thinking that he's not selling him because he's not a good footballer. It's because something's not right. Personally, there's an alarm bell going off in my head. Juventus are arguably the biggest and wealthiest club in Italy. Given that they've got an older strike force and you're selling a 19-year-old who won't be hurting you wage-wise, they've not got 100+ million for him. And I think there'll be other issues there. I don't know. If they've not got a buyback clause, then they're happy to see him out the door. I mean, people, that doesn't make sense. To be fair, the only thing you could say is the only bit you can actually say makes some sense here is that they've got an aging strike force. The rest of it is complete nonsense. Yes, Juventus, and the fact that Juventus are one of the biggest and wealthiest clubs in Italy, it makes absolutely no sense. It's not just Moise Kean. Did you not hear Dybala was rumoured to have gone and leaving the club? And there's other players that have been linked with moves. Diego Costa the other day, Douglas Costa, sorry. So Juventus game time is going to be hard to come by. So how you found attitude problems and said there's something there, who knows? At the end of the day, money talks. Money talks. They have money to buy him back. Again, whether he develops into this player everyone can believe him to be, or whether they genuinely believe he's going to just be a decent player and they'll sell him and whatnot, is another thing. But the main focus is attitude problems. How have you drawn comparisons between a 19-year-old trying to develop and is nowhere near the finished product, then someone like ADOBE, which we all know why he left? And even ADOBE, clearly ADOBE had an attitude problem, but what are you getting at? Because it's a bit ironic how you've drawn ADOBE as a comparison. We all know his move to City, all the money and all the things that was involved. But what do you hear players of the 80s that both at my club and many clubs say? We weren't paid enough, we weren't this and that. Money's always been a thing, but it's always funny how it's portrayed with a certain other sort. It's quite annoying. I don't really know where he's going with that ADOBE at 25. ADOBE, Arsenal were trying to make money. ADOBE was behaving like a mercenary and wanted to leave whether he not got money or not. That was a different divorce. Juventus, he's a young, tried and untested player. Many players that have been in his position have failed at Juventus. Not that he has. Many players won't make it. You see even Ronaldo, he's like, what, 24 years of age? How much years has Juventus had him? Is he still a regular in their team? How much players are there? So it's not necessarily that. Have you factored in that they might have wanted to actually keep him and Kean said, no, I want to leave, I want to go somewhere where I can advance my career and have a better chance of playing week in, week out? How do you know he's got attitude problems? If you've somehow heard from a reliable source, then fair enough, but how do you know this? And to compare him immediately to ADOBE, and if it was footballing comparisons and what he's doing on the field, then fair enough, but for other reasons, clearly, it just makes no sense, people. Yes, they've not got 100+ million for him because he's not a 100+ million pound player at this moment in time. Yes, there's been young players like Kylian Mbappe, and you could probably, just because of the money, Martial to a degree because of the money he went to United in total and whatnot. But not everybody's tail is like that. I think Kean is a very good talent, people, but who knows his level? And they were different contexts, people. Juventus wanted to sell for whatever reason. Like I said, there were several rumours of players leaving. How do you know that? Obviously, I don't know Juventus' finances, but they just signed Deluded and did a couple other moves, forgive me if I'm wrong, people, and have obviously been doing a couple other moves for the last couple of years. Not big stars, but you get the point. How do you not know that Juventus' budget, they weren't trying to factor in selling Kean to go and do what they wanted to do? You don't know this. How do you? There's several things you don't know. It's just, for me, the main thing is just setting a young man up for failure, really. At the end of the day, he's a real guy. I've seen one thing I like about him. He's got that attitude. He's got the positive attitude. He relishes being a star and things, and you see it with the celebrations. So this is going to be water off a young man's back. He's not going to listen to this was, to be fair. He's just going to do his talking on the field. And I hope to God he has good form for Everton and things like this, because how do you know Juventus didn't do their best to keep him, and when it became apparent he wants to leave, how do you know, people? Because it's different. You look at it, it's completely different to a degree, but you look at Cutrone at Wolves. He was a young player. What, he left AC Milan. Is he playing week in, week out for Wolves? Forgive me if I'm wrong. What's the difference there? Do you get it? There's many young players. Do you get it, people? So I don't know what he's getting at with that one there, to be fair with you. That's silly, but that's like saying Ryan Kent has an attitude problem because he's going to Rangers now for 7 million by Liverpool and they're happy to see the back of him. We all know it's unlikely he would have cut the teeth at Liverpool, so he's going to play regular football. It's nonsense. How do you get this? This is the belly of the beast, people. Like I said, he went on loan a couple of years ago, and that's the one closing point I want to leave this on, because I don't want to waste any more time on this, people, because it's just idiotic, man. It just makes no sense. I've got a lot of respect for Souness. Obviously, I've seen him on my TV, but comments like this, it just don't make no sense. You lot know I'm trying to keep it PG, try to kill that bag one day, innit? With them comments there. Shout out to you lot. But I'm sure he went on loan. He's 19. Yeah, he went to Verona, and Wikipedia says he made 19 appearances. Wikipedia is not a credible source, so let's hit up transfer mark or something, man. Was it market? I don't know, man. It just, there's no E, so I don't know. But yeah, he went on loan to Verona, and let me see how many appearances he made. Where's the appearance button? View full stats. Apologies, people. I know I'm taking long. Yeah, he played 20 times for Verona, so he went on loan to get football, and still it weren't even a fruitful loan because he made 20 appearances. Not sure how many times he completed 90 minutes. There's another debate to be had with, is, like all young players, is he being a bit impatient because he's making out Juventus is tough. He's left Juventus, fair enough. He went on loan, a couple of years ago. He's 19 now, so he went on loan and made 20 appearances. Was he mature and physically ready enough for that loan? Who knows, people? And that might be a reason as to why he's not playing week in, week out Everton. I don't know. I'm just giving you a lot of my thoughts. But one thing's for sure is, how do you know he's got an attitude problem? And to be fair, his stats, he knows how to score goals. How can, regardless of what Souness says, his stats in the first division in Italy and Serie A are quite decent. Again, I don't know for 90 minutes and stuff, but he's got 1 assist and 11 goals in 35 appearances, people. And he's obviously got two and 3 for Italy. In 3 caps. So if he's someone that's on the verge of breaking through for country, and someone that's doing all right in Serie A, how do you know he's got an attitude problem? You've not heard any of this. How do you know this? How do you know this? Like, it's just harming a young man who's let alone settle into his club. He's left his former home and adopted the home of England. He's a young 19-year-old. Could you not imagine that 19 moving to a new city, a new town, and all of these sort of things? You're not really helping the man adapt. Not that you owe him anything, but what is this really and truly? Him and ADOBE, there's no comparisons. The only comparison is that they can play up front and they've got a certain sort of hairstyle at times. That's it. Apart from that, it makes nonsense. It's nonsense, to be fair. On that note, people, I'm not going to give this any more breath, man. So if you stuck with it and you've watched me, thank you very much, man. On that note, people, DG, I'm out, man.